Hey, this is Issa Nakazawa, your host for Transmission Studio, a show featuring the independent artists and community-based organizations that make San Francisco's arts and culture scene what it is today. And today I'm super excited to be joined in the studio by Madeleine Lim, who is QWOCMAP, the Queer Women of Color Media Arts Project's founding executive and artistic director. So stay tuned. Such a pleasure to have you at Transmission Studio. Welcome. How you feeling?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be talking to you.
I know. I can't believe we're actually gathered on like the big eve before the big festival starts.
The day before our 21st anniversary.
I know. I can't believe it. And we're going to get into that. But I want to just start with kind of you introducing yourself first, like your role, and also just more personally about you and maybe some of the origin story about what even compelled you to become a filmmaker before we even get to the work that you do with QWOCMAP.
Sure. My name is Madeleine Lim, and I'm the founding executive artistic director of QWOCMAP. That's Queer Women of Color Media Arts Project, and it's a mouthful. So we tell people it's like the Affleck duck. You know, you go Affleck, it doesn't really mean anything, so it's QWOCMAP.
Say it 3 times.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, our very first festival trailer, we had a duck at the Palace of Fine Arts going QWOCMAP. But
oh, that's so smart. I love that.
In terms of my origin story, I'm actually originally from Singapore.
Yay.
And I came to the US when I was 23, and I was running an underground lesbian newsletter in Singapore, which was illegal. And there were some government arrests that got, 2 rounds of government arrests that got closer and closer to me, and then it was just time to leave. And that's how I ended up here. And in terms of filmmaking, I remember wanting to make films. I think I was 15. My girlfriend was a year younger. We were having a huge argument. And arguments at that age are very dramatic. It's life and death. And I was having this huge argument, and I remember popping out of that argument thinking, this might make an interesting film one day. And then I went back to my very dramatic argument. So that was sort of my first inkling of, wanting to be a filmmaker. And then when I got here, that was when I started getting into film, taking film classes, night classes while I was working. And then finally, I think I was 30 and it was my Saturn return. And I'm like, do or die, let's do this. It's like, no more, night classes. Let's just do this full time. So I ended up at San Francisco State University in the film program there and created a documentary called Sambal Belacan in San Francisco in 1997. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning. And that film won a couple of awards. It was on the film festival circuit. And at these different film festivals that I attended, they were LGBTQ film festivals, they were people of color film festivals, arts film festivals, human rights film festivals. I found myself being among one handful of queer women of color filmmakers. And so that was when I came to the sort of the realization, like, where are we? And if we're not the ones making films about our lives, our experiences, our community, who is going to? Who will? Wow. Like, who's going to tell our stories instead of us, right? And are we going to wait until Hollywood gets it right one day?
No.
And so that was how it started. So, that was how QWOCMAP started with our filmmaker training program. And now we have this is our 25th anniversary of QWOCMAP, the organization, and we have over 500 films that have been created through our free filmmaking workshops.
Wow, congratulations. It's such a milestone.
It is.
And just rewinding to that really powerful personal story, I wonder what some of that culture shock was, in terms of arriving to San Francisco from Singapore. Both, like, I'm kind of curious what strengths or possibilities and potentials you felt coming to San Francisco, and then maybe some of the culture shock or some of the challenges, because I feel like being an executive founder, you must have brought a really unique lens to this work, not being born and raised in the US, where we have a very specific kind of illness here, and everywhere does. There's no romanticizing that, but I'm just curious what that felt like, getting kind of those transitional years of understanding the nuances of filmmaking and culture here.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think that, so often there's this perception that the grass is greener in the US,
Yes.
particularly for immigrants. And for me, obviously, the reality is that's not true, right? It's just navigating. You just have different challenges to navigate.
Totally.
And that first documentary that I created, Sambal Belacan in San Francisco, actually is about three immigrant Singaporeans who are queer coming to San Francisco and grappling with that sense of belonging and home. Like, how do you create, you know, and maintain your cultural traditions in new country? How do you connect with, create community and sort of, especially if your blood family is not here, right? Like, how do you create
Yeah.
new family, chosen family? So it talks about that in the film, and I think that for me, it's really looking at life here from, obviously, as someone who was born and raised somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
and and taking that opportunity. I think it's like taking that opportunity. I'm here, and just to go back to your question about San Francisco, and San Francisco for me was obviously a beacon for LGBTQ
Right.
community and organizing, a beacon for Asian communities, and a beacon, bless you, and a beacon for the arts, right? And so all those three things combined together made it the natural place, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that that was the alignment that
Mm.
I found, and the queer community became my chosen family, obviously,
Wow.
and I think within that it was film, it was the arts and film specifically.
That's really
Yeah.
beautiful. And then just the jump from being like an individual maker of films or art to founding an organization is also like this moment of stretching outside of our individual practice to include community and almost be a jumping off point for other folks to create that community and find and cultivate that belonging. What was that leap like? Because I always admire people who take it because it feels like, yeah, there's just probably so much you're learning on the job.
Right, right. And I was saying that, this is our 25th anniversary of QWOCMAP, and I so was not trying to start a nonprofit at all.
Really?
Not at all. I was an independent filmmaker making my film, and then, having that realization, like, if we don't have the skills,
Oh, right.
like, how are our stories going to get out there, right?
Yes.
And and the issue is that film is such an expensive medium, right? Film training is very expensive. I mean, film school is super competitive
Yeah.
and expensive. Film itself as a medium, the equipment, and then you need your cast and then your crew and the location and the scouting and all those kinds of things. It just makes it's a huge difference from, like, I'm going to be a writer, or
Yeah.
I'm going to be a painter, or a sculptor, and so I think for me, understanding that if I were to make a film as an independent filmmaker, I would probably end up making a film once every 3 to 5 years, just because of the fundraising piece of
Right.
it, right?
I mean, that's
And
pretty
if,
fast.
yes, and
I was
that's
like, and
really
that's quick.
fast. And if I taught film
Right.
to 40 participants each year, in 10 years, we would have taught 400 participants,
Mm,
right? And in 20 years, even if, in the past, I think past 15 years or so, we were doing 40 participants each year for the first 12 years.
wow.
And then it became 20 participants for the last, 13 years or so.
Mm,
And that's how we ended up with over 500 films, because that's really how you shift a needle, right? Especially in an industry like film, where there is, like Harvey Weinstein and the Me Too movement and all of this, control and, you know, issues that go with, how, like Oscar so white, documentary so white, like all
yeah.
these movements, right? About about very real challenges that exist in our industry. So for me, this was a way of, like, how can we create an alternative? Not,
Mm,
obviously it's important to try and get a chair at their table, but how about if we build our own table? And
yes.
we invite other folks to pull up a chair at, at our multiple tables, right? And
Beautiful.
create new platforms, give, provide skills and create, you know, new platforms, right? And one of those platforms is our annual film festival, which is
Mm,
celebrating our 21st anniversary this year.
so big. Yeah, I love and connect so much with what you're saying because as someone who grew up more in the poetry space and I transitioned to filmmaking, independent filmmaking in the last 5 years, one of the most like amazing things but challenging things about filmmaking is like the village it takes to create
Mm-hmm.
one film.
Yep.
But I also love how filmmakers almost have more of a materialist or like Marxist analysis, where it's like it's also important who is behind the camera, because I was always really critical of this obsession with representation, because we actually, the politics is also flowing through the behind the scenes, the infrastructure, right? And so I think seeing all these media organizations like QWOCMAP, like BAVAC, who are really committed to training folks of color, queer folks of color, to be like the holding the boom mic, to be
Yep.
part of the sound, like every single detail is what like creates our reality.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
we all have roles to play.
That's right.
There's an infinite abundance of roles for all of us. And I'm kind of curious about this commitment to like the intersectional, because we're in a moment right now, there's like a complete internet shutdown in Gaza. There's like the, you know, all these protests and rebellion around against ICE. And we're in a moment where folks like us who've always been committed to like intersectional liberation work are seeing why the work we do matters so much. Why did you do a women of color media arts project instead of like queer Asian folks? You know, like why women of color? Why is it important for us to have our legacies and stories be interconnected and braided?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. I think that, and just to sort of talk big picture and then
Yeah.
coming into the specifics, I think very often when we think about the queer community, it's very often assumed to be white. And then when we talk about people of color, we're very often assumed to be straight, right? And
Yes.
so to be queer women of color, we are also always constantly up against the fact that people think that we are a niche within a niche within a niche, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
are, you know, among the general community, we're queer. And then within the queer community, we are women. And within that, we're of color, right?
Yeah.
When in fact, instead of being a niche, we are actually bridges, right?
Mm.
So if we put queer women of color in the center and we radiate outwards or ripple outwards, like if I think about my parents, they're not queer. One of them is white, you know, he's
Yeah.
a white, straight white man, European man, you know, my mother, my siblings, they're all straight. So it's
Yeah.
like by necessity, we are bridges, right? To
Yeah.
all different types of folks. And why queer women of color? I think that was very much informed by the fact that on that festival circuit experience, that those 2 3 years with my film, where I went to all of these different film festivals,
Mm.
and there were literally one handful
Right.
of us. And even when I was at San Francisco State back then, and you know, this was 1997, 95, 96, 97, I was the only queer person in my program. The
Right.
only queer person, not even a queer person of color, or I was the only queer person, you
Wow.
know. And and of so the piece about why women, first of all, back then and even now, women in film has always had so many challenges, right? For the
Yes.
longest time, even, you know, in Hollywood, especially in Hollywood, you know, women were relegated to sort of, you know, like non-technical, non-creative roles, like the
Yeah.
script girl, right? That was one role, and it was called a script girl, where they were the script supervisor, right? Where you track
Yeah.
continuity, and that was the only
Oof.
role that was allowed for women because that was tedious and, you know, non-creative, and they could do it, right?
Yeah.
And there was nothing else that they were allowed to do. And, you know, this is what, how many years of Oscars do we have now? 90 years, I think. And it was a few years ago that a woman finally was nominated for the Cinematography Award. Nominated,
Nominated.
yes.
Considered.
One woman in over 90 years of Oscars, right? So
It's by
again,
design, so it
totally.
totally makes
But
sense. Yeah.
that's you know, that's the industry, right? And
Yes.
so it was really important to focus on women because of that whole, you know, sort of perception of women in technology, women in cameras, women in equipment, right? That was that one piece. And then of color was, you know, past the, I think it was that because I'm from a mixed family, right? Mixed race
Mm.
family. I'm a mixed race person, and for me, it wasn't just about focusing on Asian, but it was like, how can we, you know, how can all of us come together, right?
Yeah.
And advocate for our stories. And
Mm.
I think that that's the one piece that that's really important in terms of have you heard of the Annenberg School of Communications from
Yeah.
USC, University of Southern California? They release a report every year,
Hmm.
the top 100 uh, box office
Hits.
blockbusters, hits.
Yeah.
That's right. And now I think it's 1,700 films. And they study these 100 films for the past 17 years. And sort of put together, collect all of the data around like how many are women filmmakers, how many of women of color filmmakers, much less queer, and this is behind the camera, obviously, how many are women are producers, how many are LGBTQ composers, writers, and then in front of the camera, like LGBTQ characters, how many are there? How many have spoken lines?
Or
How many?
multidimensional.
That's right.
Right.
How many, leading roles go to women, or how many leading roles go to queer and trans people, right? And I think that's really important in terms of understanding the larger picture within which this work exists, right? And it's like, okay, this is the industry, this is the community. And so what change are we trying to create here, right? And I think from the get-go, 25 years ago, all of this was built into the DNA of QWOCMAP, right? Like, removing economic barriers, making the filmmaking workshops free, making our film festival free, right? So that, you don't have to even think about like, do I have the funds to go be in community to see myself on the big screen?
Right.
Because we still can't always see ourselves on the big screen. I mean, even someone like me, right? As an Asian, an immigrant, with my gender presentation, it's not like I can flip Netflix and see, myself represented, right? And so all of these things around race, around gender, and now, women, there's, people use the word women, I think it's like women expansive, to include non-binary, non-conforming, and trans folks of color. And so, we include all, that community as well, right? That's, that's part of who we are and have been. So.
Yeah, I love your answers and analysis and how like thoughtful it is, because I do think all of these intersections need to show up in our commitment and our programming, because sometimes there are economic barriers, and in the US specifically, there isn't as much of a focus on class, because then it makes it easier for us actually to become really like divided and integrated into the parts that keep us really separate. But I want to ground us now in the festival. It's the 21st anniversary. It kicks off tomorrow. Can we talk first a little bit about this year's theme and why you picked it, and a little bit maybe one or two films or filmmakers you're really excited about this year?
Oh my goodness, there is so much to be excited about this year, and you can see
the
postcards
the
right
flyers.
there.
Our Vanna White moment.
It is our 21st anniversary, and it is fierce determination is our festival focus. And it is obviously this moment where, I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in reacting to the moments. And this is really us being proactive, reclaiming what's helpful for us in this moment, right? Like given the, chaos politically, intentionally, how much anxiety it's creating, so this is really about us being like, we're going to be fiercely fabulous. We're going to have fun, be mischievous, and, just be joyful, come together in community and, be ourselves, and so it's that fierce determination, like, we got this, we do this together, right? We have so many films. We're screening 49 short films. Well, actually, they're not all short films. We're screening 49 films in 7 screening programs. This is the most we've ever had. Every single day is packed. Oh my God, from like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
So exciting.
But it's very exciting. We had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of films submitted, and they are amazing films from around the world. We're screening films from Africa. We have a film about being like queer pride in Botswana. We have a film from South Africa. We have amazing films from, like all around the world.
That's so important. I just want to say that it's an international film festival. And I think that lens is always, for me, so it really expands my even understanding of like narrative assumptions in the US, like the structures that we assume in a film or in documentary, and then you meet filmmakers from completely other perspectives where they kind of stretch your imagination of what's possible, not just in character development, but in like what's allowable in the documentary form. So I just want to say that's really cool and really needed, I think.
Yeah. And so Friday night, which is tomorrow, Our opening night,
June 13th.
that's right, June 13th, Friday, June 13th, Friday the 13th, is our Queer Juneteenth screening.
Oh,
It's called
okay.
Black Liberatory Futures,
Mm,
and it is an amazing, really powerful screening.
mm.
We have, we call them the aunties, these two older Black lesbians who live on land that was a part of the um, escape route
Oh,
for enslaved folks when they were trying to get up north.
wow.
And about these two who are basically stewards of the land, and really amazing films. And then we actually have a panel on Saturday.
Yeah.
It's part of our Unshakable Legacy panel series, and it's called Nurturing the Next Generation. And we have Rose Trochet as
Wow.
one of our panelists. And Rose Trochet was the filmmaker for Go Fish, which
Mhm.
came out in the 90s and, was this huge hit with Guinevere Turner. And on Sunday, we have our anniversary reception, which is a celebration of our 25th, QWOCMAP anniversary, with performances by Allegra Bandy. We'll have a DJ. Dr. D. Spencer will be on the
Okay.
keyboard. Yeah, Nobody's Girl is going to be singing and performing. So
Oh
it's
my
going to be super
gosh.
exciting. Yeah, plus, of course, the films, right? The films are
Yes.
amazing. I mean, we're screening Standing Above the Clouds. We're screening a documentary about queer climate change by activists in Florida.
Wow.
These are, yeah, amazing films.
Can you tell me a little bit about, I know you said hundreds of submissions. Like, what's that submission process like? Who's on that committee and how do you kind of make the selections?
Yes. So we actually opened it up to the Film Freeway platform
Oh,
for
yeah, yeah.
this particular call because it had always been through our own database. And so
Got
we
it.
actually opened it up to Film Freeway, and that was where we got a lot of international submissions. In
Mm.
fact, we got so many submissions that we actually curated a queer API screening called Queer Asian World Cinema and screened it in the month of May during, Asian Pacific, Asian
Yeah,
American, yeah.
AAPIA.
Well, it's
AAPIA.
Native Hawaiian
And
Pacific
oh,
Islander
right, right, right.
Month.
Yeah.
We did an online screening. We did an in-person screening in partnership with Chinese Cultural Center as well.
Who we've had
Um,
on the show.
yeah, that's right. I think you spoke with Hoy. Yes,
Yes. Shout
that's
out
right.
to Hoy. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, um, yeah. Anyways, going back to the films. So it's an open submission call. And in addition to that, the films that get completed during our filmmaking workshop are included in that as well, right? And so
Oh,
they
nice.
are, we have focused primarily on short films, specifically because it's a platform that, as an emerging maker,
That's what I was thinking.
you generally start with short films because economically it's a little bit more, it's less challenging than jumping into a feature length film. Um, and so we really see that as really important to amplify their
Mm,
work, their just who they are as a creator, right?
mm,
And get them on that journey, and I think that there are not enough opportunities for our communities to get that opportunity, right? Like, you have your standard, straight white man who goes to film school and they get
right.
wined and dined by the studios upon graduation and get 3 picture deals or 5 picture deals. No one's coming to our community with those kinds of offers, right? So
Right.
how do we then create that for our own community to try and, give them the opportunities?
The visibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And so, it's primarily short films. So, our screening committee consists of our staff. So there were about 4 or 5 of us typically, depending. And we watch all the films, and then we
Mm,
basically look at the programming and and the story that we're trying to tell, right? With each
mm,
programming, what are some of the themes that are rising to the surface, and then how do we tell that story, and where do we start, where do we end, and what's the journey that we go on, right? The
yeah.
emotional journey that we take the viewer on. So all those are all considerations.
It's like a visual DJ where
Yes,
you're
that's right, totally.
selecting
Mm-hmm.
based on theme and
That's right.
mood.
That's
And
right.
how can folks get tickets and find out the schedule? Is there a website, social media?
Yes, all of that, all the above. We try and stay up with technology.
Hey now, you got to, you have to.
That's right. So if you go to quackmap.org and just click on the film festival, or you just go to QWOCFF.org,
Okay.
that's Queer Women of Color Film Festival. they'll get you right there. It's free.
We love that price.
And
$3.99.
so you can register. You can also just walk in. It is at the Presidio Theatre in San Francisco.
So pretty.
There are 2 Presidio Theaters in San Francisco.
Okay, so
This is the one at 99 Moraga
okay.
Avenue in the Presidio. The other one's on Chestnut. Don't go to that one.
I'm known in my friend group for going to if there's 2 locations, I go to the wrong one. So I appreciate the address.
So go to the one at 99 Moraga Avenue and feel free to just walk in, bring your friends, come hang out. And, one of our taglines is come for the films and stay for the love.
Oh, that's a great tagline. And one of the questions we leave on is, why San Francisco? Why the Bay Area? Like, why, as someone who obviously came here for very specific intentions, have you stayed and done your work here?
Oh my goodness. Part of the reason that I mentioned what brought me here in the first place has kept me here all these years.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I arrived here and have not left. It's the support for the arts. It's the support for the queer trans community. It's the support for the Asian community. And I think those 3 things are so close to my heart. And that is what has kept me here all these years, despite the June gloom, foggy Carl.
It's the windstorm.
Oh my God. I mean, every year I'm like, I cannot deal with this fog, but I'm still here.
Carl.
Yeah, Carl the Fog. He has a name. The fog. Our fog has a name.
He deserves one.
Yeah. But San Francisco, I think I have to say, despite the fact that one of the challenges that we're going through right now is that we have had half of our budget cut.
Yes.
And that's huge for an organization like ours. I mean, we're small, we're grassroots, and to have half our budget cut from a grant that was supposed to come to us from the city of San Francisco. And we were not the only ones. There were 38 other organizations that are in similar boat. And so we're in a moment where it's super important right now to, sort of figure out how to get past this. And, it's our 25th anniversary and we want to celebrate, but, we also want to hopefully keep our doors open past this point, and I think that, however, we would not have been able to even reach 25 years had we been in any other city, in any other state.
Yes,
I think San Francisco has been, as a city, has been super supportive, So I'm really hoping that, we can get past this moment because budgets are getting cut left, right, front, back, above, from all directions. So.
Well, I also want to say you and your work is why San Francisco is a place that we all stay. So I think it's reciprocal. It's like an ecosystem multi-directionally. So I'm really proud of you and everyone at QWOCMAP.
Thank you.
Congrats on 25 years and 21 years of the festival. We'll see you there.
Come join us.
Come join us. Yes. And thank you so much for being on Transmission Studio.
It was so much fun. Thank you.
I learned so much. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Transmission Studio. Definitely go check out the QWOCMAP and the QWOCMAP Film Festival starting Friday, June 13th, going through Saturday the 15th.
Sunday the 15th.
Sunday the 15th, yes.